Hi, everybody. So we're just waiting for Dr. Lanka to join in, which he has. I'm going to add him in now. Let's see. We're just waiting. I hope that it works. Aha, it looks like it worked. Hello, Dr. Lanka.
Wow.
How are you?
I am good, Letitia. How are you doing?
I'm great, thank you. It's so good to see you, even though we are so far apart in distance, but at least we can still be connected.
Well, you're looking good. You don't seem to be run down in spite of
Oh,
all
no.
of the challenges.
Oh, I don't feel
Yeah,
very good. I think, I don't know, we're just taking it each day, each moment as it comes, because,
yeah,
I don't know, we just have to make it work, right?
absolutely so.
Yeah,
You got to guard your mind.
definitely.
If the mind, yeah, if the mind falls, the body is going to follow.
Yeah, sure. So I just want to introduce you very quick to all of the people that are just joining in. So many of you, I don't know how many of you do know, but Dr. Lanka is a Christian psychotherapist, and he's also a marriage counselor. I think some people even call him Dr. Love. He's a really good marriage counselor. His seminars go all around the city, and hopefully it'll be around the country soon because it's brilliant. And I know that it's helped in our church. We've hosted his marriage seminars, and it was amazing. Every single person that attended was amazed. He's hilarious. He's so good, and he's also done a parenting seminar for us. So I thought, why not get him to chat to all of our viewers, all of the people on Instagram, some of the moms that really need assistance, the parents that need assistance, and just everybody that's struggling during this time, because it hasn't been easy adapting to this new normal. And so he's been sharing some great tips on Facebook, and I just felt like maybe we should also bring him onto Instagram and share all his wisdom with us on the Instagram community.
Well, it is indeed a privilege to join you again. I'm always blessed by your vision for families, Letitia. And I've noticed your posts as well. They have been very encouraging. I love your sense of humor. And it is, in fact, one of the main coping mechanisms that one needed to adopt during this time of crisis.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you once again for having me. And love to dad via virtual contact, of course, and mom. But
Soon. I think my sister's
eventually,
joining, so hopefully they're watching with her as well.
wonderful. And
Yeah.
yes, a very good afternoon to all of our followers out there. I think it's gone out pretty extensively. And like the marriage seminars that have now actually gone countrywide, I must thank you for this opportunity. And yeah, you're a visionary, and I think this is going to go to another dimension as well. So yeah, welcome. I hope I can help some people out there today.
Great. So let's get into it. So yesterday when we chatted on the phone, we were talking about creating an environment in your home that helps people to cope with what's going on around us right now. You know, social contact is something that we need so desperately just to function, and it's something that we are just told not to have. So could you just chat to us about some coping mechanisms that we can use now?
Yes, social distancing don't mean emotional neglect. Can I say that again?
Yeah, that's so good.
Social distancing don't mean emotional neglect. And, that is why it is so important to stay connected to the family unit. And it is, that sense of family that they're going to feed off and encourage and strengthen the emotional state of each individual or each member of the family. So, Letitia, I know that you guys have got some pretty good questions for me, and I would really like to go into those questions as well. But I think, just to lay a foundation for what we want to discuss this afternoon, this is unprecedented.
Yeah.
The first thing you moms ought to know is that there is no indictment against you. because you don't know, they don't know.
Sure.
Psychologists are simply putting stuff together based on past research, based on past behavioral patterns. And so what they've done is they're basically giving guidelines. However, you the expert, Mom, because you are now hands-on, you have empirical evidence, and based on your empirical research as to how to adapt certain typical features to work within your home, and so the dynamics are different, Letitia. It's absolutely different. So I think a good take-off point for us this afternoon would be that there is absolutely no reason to feel guilty about anything.
Okay. I think that's a good point, because it speaks to one of the questions that we did get from one of the people, that one of my followers. She did ask. She says that she's struggling to work remotely and balance having her kid at home and having to entertain him and go through the homeschooling, and it's been so difficult, and she goes to bed every night feeling guilty because she hasn't done enough. And I think, like most people, I know when because I have 2 kids, and when my youngest was born, I felt very guilty with my eldest because I felt like I wasn't giving her enough attention. So I think it's that same mom guilt that's coming back into play, and it's a very similar emotion that everyone's starting to feel. Like we're just juggling the cleaning, the cooking, the home, working remotely from home, and then we have to homeschool the kids and entertain them and hopefully make them feel loved, and it's so difficult. So how do we do that?
Firstly, putting yourself on a guilt trip sets you up as a prime candidate for depression. So you have to guard that. You know, like I said, these are unprecedented times. Everybody is trying to find a way through. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the most essential things here is for you to understand that yes, you're a super mom, but you are not expected to do things that are beyond your capability. Sure. You have, I mean, as a Christian psychotherapist, I use scripture as a reference point, that the Bible says that even Jesus got tired at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And he could have put himself on a guilt trip and said to himself that, listen, I didn't heal like 20 people in the next town that I could have got to if I just wasn't so tired. Sure. No. Firstly, you've got to understand that you can't do everything. Right. Your first priority is you. Yes, you, Mom. Why? You see, you're absolutely no good to anybody if you have to have a breakdown. Yeah. So setting a pace for your day, setting a pace for the week is absolutely important. And so having to deal with the guilt aspect of this is, you must comfort yourself to know that, listen, my kids are fed, my kids are clothed, my kids are happy, and that's priority right now. Mm-hmm. And if you've done that, every other aspect of having to complete tasks that you've engaged in, like arts and crafts, and even trying to finish up some kind of a deadline for your work, because many people are working remotely. These all take second stage. They're not on the main scene for you right now. So your main priority is that you are a mom. Now, what will help you is this. You must understand the changing of caps. Okay. Right now, you probably have to be the mom, the wife, and then, of course, the career woman. Mm-hmm. And then you are adding to that the teacher, the caretaker, the doctor, and of course the communications person. So there are multiple caps that you are wearing in the course of the day. In order to alleviate guilt, wear the cap that is necessary in that particular time. You must learn how to separate what is urgent and what is important. Right now, there's lots of important things, but you deal with what is urgent first. Then you deal with what is important later. And so urgencies will present themselves, deal with the emergency, and you have to guard your mind that you don't put yourself into an extreme self-critical mode where you start to present with codependency issues. So I hope that is helping somebody. So I think to simplify that, in order to deal with guilt, understand that you can only do so much in a day.
Definitely.
And set out your priorities. And your priorities are to take care of your children first.
Okay.
Not even washing the dishes or cleaning the house. All right.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that a little later. But I think the important factor is knowing what to do first. Do it, and then don't hammer yourself over the head because of something that you did not do.
Sure, that's so good. I think that's, and a lot of people are agreeing with you, and I think that's relieved a lot of pressure from everybody, because everyone's felt really pressurized to get everything done, and it's absolutely impossible. And so yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for that. I think it's been so helpful. Another thing is with the kids, how do we create at home? How do we make it? I know we are so stressed. So how do we not transfer that stress into them in this home environment?
Firstly, you must understand that children take the cues from their parents and their peers, right? So children respond to static rather than what you instruct.
Sure.
Now, the static of your environment will determine the mood of the child. Children pick up on the vibe. Children are very sensitive to the mood of their parents.
Okay.
Right? Unfortunately, in this time, you're going to have to pull everything out of the hat in order to ensure that you don't transfer that emotional state to your child if you are in a paranoid state. Right?
Yes.
So again, it comes down priority. Mom, you are the priority here, because everything depends on how you react and you respond. So you are in a difficult space, which is understandable. In order to alleviate that, you need to do things that will relieve your stress levels.
Okay.
Meditation, for that matter. Good music, having to limit, news overload.
Sure.
And another major factor is cutting yourself off from negative people. The reason being is that when you communicate continually with negative people, you put yourself in an echo chamber of negativity.
Yeah.
So in other words, you start to echo what they are saying in a negative. Now, how that works is whatever you repeatedly put into your conscious mind will eventually end up in your subconscious mind as a fact.
Okay.
And your body then is going to start to respond. So it's a psychosomatic reaction to what your mind believes. So if you're going to start believing that there's no hope here, if you're going to start believing that, we're never going to make it, the food is not going to come through, we don't know how we're going to pay. Now, these are all realities. And I know some of the moms say, but doc, you know what? That's the reality of what I face. I absolutely agree with you. But you must remember, as we said, as a mom, your first priority is yourself. The reason it is yourself, so that you can give your best self to your children.
It's so
So
good.
therefore,
Yeah. My mom always says something so good. My mom always says that the woman is the thermostat of the home. So whatever temperature she's feeling, the rest of the home feels it. It's always stuck with me that as a mom, you're the thermostat of the home. So if you are feeling cold or you're feeling too hot in the situation, then that's the environment that the home is going to be in. So it's something just to add there.
Absolutely. I think, the wives are really the thermostats of the home. I get to feel the heat all the time here. And and when she is cold, Roger, tell them to put the aircon off. But nothing's colder when she gives me the cold shoulder. So
Yes.
listen, absolutely. So that, you know what, listen, what we're basically saying is, if you regulate, you will be able to give off yourself at its best. So what happens in the process is, you find that if you're now taking care of yourself and you start to guard your mind, you don't allow all of the negative things to influence you. Because what happens is, like I said, subconsciously this is happening, and unconsciously your body, your facial expressions and your body language starts to convey anxiety and depression, paranoia to your children. So the way that you can help your children is by starting to help yourself. And I will give some more coping mechanisms at a later stage. But I think the most important factor here is this: if you guard in your mind, you transfer to your children more peace and more tranquility, and you don't influence their cortisol levels to rise to the point of having to deal with stress. So children suffer stress as well. So it is so important for us to maintain our balance so that they can have their balance. And,
Dr. Langa, while you're saying children do suffer stress, what are some of the manifestations? How do we pick up that they are feeling stressed? Maybe just as a guide, so that we have an idea of when our children are feeling stressed.
Well, I think it's common to both children and adults, but just some of the symptoms that you'll find, exaggerated right now. Restlessness. If you're dealing with your child, you'll find your child becomes highly restless. Now, what I must say, maybe this is a good point to point out, that if your child has been suffering some predisposed psychological challenge, like ADD or ADHD, or if you have a teenage child at home and they're probably suffering with bipolar, or they're starting to come into more serious cases of schizophrenia and things like that, please understand that right now the lockdown is going to exaggerate that. So the exaggeration of the predisposed mental challenges is something else to deal with, and we'll talk about how to deal with that. However, don't mistake what your child is going through right now for some form of psychological disorder. I'm having a lot of parents phone in to say, Doc, can you suggest any kind of medication for the child? I said, no, don't jump right now. This is not the time to self-diagnose. And, and Google is not the answer.
Everybody's doing Dr. Google and just trying to find the answers themselves.
That's right. So what I basically do is, once I've diagnosed somebody with something, I always send them to a professional, like another professional, like a doctor, a medical doctor, or I would send them to a psychologist or a psychiatrist for a second opinion. And from there, we work a treatment plan. So there's no quick fix, drop a tablet in the mouth of the child, and the child is going to be well. So having said that, excuse me, some of the issues that you will find coming up right now, some of the symptoms that will be presenting: restlessness, because you must remember they are now starting to suffer cabin fever. And of course, it's closed environment, and they start to go stir crazy, as we call it. But also, these are seasonal affective disorder, kind of like, you know, how people will suffer in winter, they'll go into depression and so on and so forth. This is situational related, you know, disorders. So the way that you got to find them, Letitia, is number one, restlessness. Number two, the children become lethargic. And you're probably thinking, yeah, but I'm trying to tell this child, do this, take this to the kitchen, and they like really not moving. And you're thinking that the child is just being rebellious. Not necessarily so. The child could be feeling lethargy because of the lack of movement. That is why getting your child first thing in the morning to do a little bit of exercise or jump around or just run around the house or the yard is something that is absolutely crucial. It's important because, you know, you get the blood moving and, you know, they feel stimulated, and also exercise releases endorphins. And once it releases these endorphins, the child starts to feel a little bit happier and more compliant. Right? So you got restlessness, you got lethargy. Then what you got to really watch out for is sadness. Now, you know, we can talk about depression, and because some of the people feel like having to go through this time is very much, and I think one of the ladies put it as like postpartum depression and the similarities. We'll talk about depression and some of the signs of depression as we go along. However, sadness, trouble concentrating. You will find that some of the children will just not be able to concentrate, and it's not because they're ADD or ADHD. It's because of the current situation. So I think I'm relieving some of the pressure on some of the moms there that are starting to think that probably their child has some kind of a psychological disorder. You know, your baby don't have that right now, so let's not go there. All right. What your child is they're responding to the lockdown. They're responding to the isolation. You must remember they have been torn out of their routine. They have been rudely abrupted, abruptly and rudely disturbed. One thing that you gotta understand then is they don't know how to respond to what we've been teaching them all along, because parenting is all about routine as well. And suddenly there isn't that. So they're going to have trouble concentrating right now. Lack of patience. You will find that your child will start to throw tantrums. I don't know if any one of you are experiencing that right now. And they will start to throw some tantrums.
I definitely.
They're not going to be
very strong-willed. She's very strong-willed, so she has a lot of tantrums. But I know some of the moms have also chatted to me and said that there's been a few tantrums and it's been difficult to deal with, and it's really hard to deal with the tantrums. What are your tips for dealing with the tantrums?
Communication, patience, empathy. You know, you have to appease your child to a certain degree, but without having to be overcompensating. So, yeah, that's important, because you must remember we also got to think about post-lockdown, post-isolation. And then we're going to start to pull out the rod and so on and so forth, you know. But I think an important way to deal with the tantrum is compromise. I communicate. I understand what you're going through, baby. I am very sorry, but I can do this for you. Here is this in place of that. All right? And you opt for healthier options of compromise. Or you can suggest that I cannot play with you now. Mommy's cooking. But I promise you, as soon as this is done, we are going to play this game. All right? Now, here's a caution. Be careful not to compromise using the cell phone. And laptops and all of those things. Because that's right. What they basically do is that because the child is throwing a tantrum, here's the phone boy, here's the phone girl, and go off into a little corner, and their screen time is excessive, and it can be very damaging.
Right.
All right. So I think that what you have to understand is, when you're talking about tantrums, learn to be compassionate, communicate with the child, and compromise with the child as well. And your compromise, of course, like I said, you opt as the mom, you be firm without having to be cold.
Okay.
You know, right? And that's the way. And you know, I have to tell you, it's communicating with that child, because what happens is we shut them down, we threaten them, and we throw them something that we should not be giving them in the first place.
Okay.
So I hope that helps.
Threatening, it brings up discipline. So I know in many homes, because everyone's locked up together now, we're definitely seeing the differences in parenting styles between the spouses. And how do you manage? One of the moms asked, how do you manage when you and your partner have different discipline methods? How do you deal with that?
Okay, that's an absolutely good question. You know, having to put everybody for a long period of time in a closed environment bound to create conflict.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm finding that lots of parents, what they are doing is they're turning their child or children issues into marital problems.
Sure.
And that's the first thing that you got to guard against, that this is an issue of parenting style, but it's not a marital issue. What do you mean, Dr. Lanka? Well, what happens is, because you have a disagreement about how you're going to discipline the child, don't mean that you two should go sleep in separate beds, that you two should ignore each other, that you two should start to attack each other. So that's important. However, you know, when it comes to parenting methods or parenting styles, almost, you know, never will you find two people that are really on the same page for parenting. Sure. The reason being is there are multiple variables, if I put it to you that way, that one has to consider. I mean, you're coming from two ends of the spectrum, two different value systems, and you're bringing it all now, and I want to create a new value system for your child. Now, the operative word is new. So learn how to draw from your own childhood and the way your parents parented you, and create for yourself a parenting model that will best suit your dynamics.
Yeah.
You understand? So, because if you don't do that, what's going to happen is he's going to impose his parenting style from where he came. She's going to do the same, and you're definitely going to confuse the child.
Yeah.
Now, when you are dealing with different parenting styles, it is so important for parents to first sit together and create a manifesto or a blueprint for how they're going to discipline.
Right.
They need to do that. Parents don't do that. What they basically do is, we are reactionary people, where we will respond to situations as they arise, and we'll cross that bridge when it comes. Sure. But reality of it is, when you get there, then you don't know how to deal with it. Let's be proactive parents. Moms, sit down with your daddies or their daddies and talk about it and say, listen, the way that we've been going about this is creating confusion for the child. Both of us want the same thing. We want the best for the babies. So what you're going to do is draw up a blueprint. And once you have agreed on a plan of action, then you've got to work with that. However, you must also give yourself a little bit space to be able to change a little here and there, because you must remember that child is an individual growing up with individual characteristics.
Yeah.
Not everything is from mom and dad, right? And so therefore, to maintain the integrity of their identity, it is so important for moms and dads to create this plan and to agree before you get there. If one of the partners are unwilling to do so, I think what will basically happen is you will need professional help. You need to get a third voice into the matter, right?
Okay.
So, there's not much else that one can say, but parents need to understand what the disciplinary and what the parenting models are, so that they can draw up a plan that's best for their child.
Yeah, definitely. You have to kind of mold it to your family and your values and what you want to instill. It's not going to be perfectly outlaid for every person. So definitely, I agree with that. I think that's a really good point. Yeah, that's a really good point. One of the things we were talking about is, you said earlier, postpartum depression and quarantine depression, and how it could be similar. I don't know if quarantine depression is actually a thing. I think that it's probably going to become a thing that people start to talk about in the future. But do you think that there is a likeness, and how do we protect ourselves from that? I know with postpartum depression, they say you need to talk to somebody, you need to take medication. I mean, I never had it personally, but I know that there's a lot of things that you need to do. But now in this time, during this phase of our lives, how do we guard against something like that?
Okay, depression is depression. They have typical features in presentation. So you'll find that maybe slight variations if we're talking postpartum depression as compared to major depressive disorders. So they are the typical features that one can follow through. Isolation depression is actually known as cabin fever.
Okay.
So cabin fever is something that is understood and has been studied and researched and so on. And there are, of course, like I said, typical features that one is experiencing cabin fever. I'll just give you very quickly the symptoms related to isolation, right? What one will be experiencing. Then I'll give you some of the symptoms in regard to depression. Right? Okay. And then we will see that. I think that will make it easy for the moms to gauge that. Listen, I think I'm having a serious issue here. There seems to be a depression as apart from cabin fever. Okay. Now the COVID-19 situation has triggered, major psychological disorders in people, like OCD for that matter, right? Paranoia. I know the guys who are suffering from agoraphobia, fear of public places, for them to isolate, they're happy about that. But it is those, especially the extroverted people, that are really feeling this. So let's just look at some of the symptoms that are related to cabin fever firstly. Like I said, as we were discussing about children, the symptoms are similar for all. It's restlessness, lethargy, sadness, depression, trouble concentrating, lack of patience, food cravings. We all know about that one. Decreased motivation. I can hardly hear you.
Everybody's baking.
So would you say that again?
I said everybody's baking and the shelves are all empty now. So yeah, everybody's eating a lot.
Absolutely. It's actually a sign of dealing with depression, right? Food cravings, decreased motivation, having to get somebody to do something. And, as much as we've got so much of time on our hands, and somebody would say, Vernon, please paint the wall. And Vernon will probably say, I just got no time right now. I'm very busy on my phone. So
my mom just joined as you spoke about it.
I'm picking on him. So difficulty waking. You'll find that your child especially will have difficulty waking up. So that's another important thing. Um, Time goes fast when you're having fun, eh? Frequent napping.
Yes.
Frequent napping. You'll find that your child probably in and out. Also, they start to suffer insomnia at a certain level because they're napping so much, they don't sleep so well at night, right? Hopelessness, inability to cope with stress, and then of course the physical features where there will be changes in the weight and so on. Some of the psychological factors will be anxiety, panic, anger, and fear. Now, those are some of the factors that will present themselves, with cabin fever. Let's look at depression. Depression, feelings of sadness, emptiness, unhappiness. This may be with or without weeping. So if you find that your child especially is starting to cry a lot unnecessarily, they put themselves in a corner, they're isolating and they're crying, right? You've got to watch out for that. Frequent crying, feeling sad, right? Some of your moms might be feeling like that. Angry outbursts. You lose it over little things, irritability over and frustration over small matters. Loss of interest or pleasure in normal activities. You just don't want to do anything. Now we're talking about depression. So this is going to happen at any time, right? Sleep disturbances, like I said, insomnia or sleeping too much, tiredness, lack of energy, changes in appetite, increased or decreased, anxiety, agitation or restlessness, excessive worrying. I think, again, we must be able to differentiate worry over this situation and worry as a chronic worry kind of a manifestation, right? Pacing, hand-wringing, and inability to sit still. Slow thinking, speaking, body movements, feelings of worthlessness. And that's why I said it was so important for one to guard the mind, because remember the guilt thing that we were talking about? It's a doorway for depression, right? So feelings of worthlessness, guilt, fixating on failures, trouble thinking, concentrating, frequent thoughts of death. Listen, I think I want to stress that if you are finding that you're thinking death, you're thinking suicide, you're thinking that it's not worth living, please, I want to encourage you. Please call my officers or call somebody, because there is help out there.
And I'll
unexplained physical problems as well. Say it again.
I'm going to give the number out for your officers at the end of this, and so that people can have access to you. Yeah.
I think, just to bring it around for the people out there, some of the coping mechanisms that one can adopt right now is you've got to learn to stay calm. I know it's difficult. I absolutely understand. Okay. And, again, humor is one of the most amazing ways to keep calm. Right? And remember, if the mind goes, if the mind falls, the body tends to follow suit. And you will start to experience a lot of psychosomatic reactions where you will suffer migraines and, tummy aches, constipation, and all of those things simply because of what's happening up here. So I think it is absolutely important for, as a coping mechanism, to use humor to keep calm. Also, exercise is an amazing thing, and I know we're limited, but I suppose it's going to open up a little bit. But what you need to do is create a dance class, for you and your children.
We actually do that. We Zumba every morning. We Zumba, so it's quite fun.
That's right. Now I'm going to say something that's probably going to be a little bit controversial here right now, but you can actually get a spiritual overload that can create a heaviness in in the atmosphere and a frustration for the children at large.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you're not going to spend your whole day listening to sermons.
Yeah, sure.
You're not going to spend the whole day worshiping and praying.
Sure.
You with me? I think, you know, there's a time and a season for everything. Do your worship, do your prayer, listen to the word, but don't be 24/7, you know, on this. It will create a paranoia because your children will think, my mom is desperate, my mom is scared, mom, only God can help us. And yes, God can help us, baby, but show them that you're connecting with God, not just out of worry, but God is, you understand? So the child is not only going to come to God in a time of worry as well. So I think you get the message of what I'm trying to say. Okay. Sorry about that. Communicate. Be truthful to your child. Explain to your child in a way that they will understand without overloading them with information. Now, what they need to hear is what is relative to them.
Okay.
They don't need to hear about the economy right now. They don't need to hear, you understand? And that is why when mom and dad are having this discussion, the child may not understand what they're talking about, but will pick up on the vibe or the atmosphere that is being created by what is being communicated.
Sure.
So communicate with the children and keep the communication, because that's one way. And when you do communicate, put your phone aside.
Okay.
Give them the full attention.
Right.
And keep up some of your home rules, like when mom and dad are talking right now, you need to be quiet. Don't forget those things. Right? Because you're going to overcompensate and you're going to constantly allow them to be interrupting you and so on and so forth. And in talking about that, you know, maintaining some form of routine is absolutely important.
Yes.
When we talk about maintaining a routine, don't do recreational things in the time that you have set out to do educational things.
Okay. Right.
You with me? So structure your day in a manner that we say that, right, baby, after we finish this and this, then we will have that. So they understand that there are still routines that need to be followed, even though it may not be as stringent as the ones that where you're going to work and so on and so forth. Right? So maintain routine as far as possible. Right?
Good.
Have fun. You know, I know some of your moms are saying, you know, I'm alone in this. I don't have a daddy to help me with this thing. Daddy is so caught up with worrying about how he's going to pay the rent and how he's going to pay for the car and buy the food. And how do I have fun in a time like this? Well, you've got to ask yourself this question. You know, as the Bible says, which one of you can add a single minute to his life by worrying?
Sure.
Again, ask yourself, what is the most important thing right now? I have consoled myself to say that I will deal with that when the appropriate time comes. I will, what is in my power to do now, I will do now.
Yes.
Most importantly is that moms and dads need to work together.
Okay.
If you don't share this, you must remember it's a double burden on one person.
Definitely.
Right? And if moms and dads can start to share this, I think the important thing then will be that you're communicating a family and a togetherness to deal with issues, that you are not alone in this, we're going to do this together. Right? So I think that embracing each other's burdens here, but also to have the fun, if you put into perspective that this lockdown is not forever.
Yes.
I said to my daughter, in Johannesburg with 2 kids. I said to her, I said, Charlene, I said, what you need to do is create a festive atmosphere for the children. I said, Dad, how do I do that? I said, firstly, you got to understand that this is not going to be forever. Now, you got to make the best of what you have.
Right.
You know, I say this to couples. I say, if you're going to stay, you might as well be happy.
Mm-hmm.
So
sure.
now that you're in it, I think what you got to do is use this and say to yourself, I'm going to rest. I'm going to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you don't get to rest, you'll still have the fun, because you'll put your mind at rest. And say to yourself, I'm not going to get a break like this again. So so you're turning now what is so said to be an isolation as basically a holiday, a rest period, because when you get back to work, you're going to be very busy. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be lots of things for you to do. I said, convince yourself that. And she said, hey, Dad, it's working. I am now looking at the lockdown as a holiday. So I will cook, I will play, I will rest, and that's it.
Love that.
So that's how you beat, that is how you beat the worry, right? You got to convince your mind. Change your attitude to the lockdown, and you will change the atmosphere of your home.
That's so good. I love that. This is brilliant. Yeah, that's a good point.
Can I say this? Moms, you need to embrace each stage of your life. Right now, if you have toddlers, that's a certain stage of your life.
Sure.
Don't measure this stage with somebody else's stage of life. You may not be able to have the pretty nails and the makeup on 24/7. You may not be able to do that, especially now that the maids are away. Mm-hmm. So embrace that. Understand that, listen, I am not in competition with those divas that are out there that don't have children, or perhaps their children are grown and gone and mm-hmm. can afford to have the pretty nails and sit around with a glass of bubbly or whatever it is that they have and look good out there. You understand what I'm saying? So, embrace this time. Embrace that this is what you have to do right now. And if you embrace that, you'll find that it is much easier to cope without having to deal with the competition to be like somebody else.
So good. So good. Yeah.
All right. I think, we basically, I can hardly hear you. I'm sorry to interrupt you there.
No, it's fine. I said it's so good and so important. And comparison really is the thief of joy. Sometimes we compare ourselves to other people's seasons and wish we could be in that, but our situations are completely different and our stage of life is completely different. And yeah, it's such good advice.
Yeah. So I think, if I may say anything in departing on this issue, is that if parents work together, that is absolutely important. But if you don't have somebody to work with, and if you are having to handle the home by yourself, I think please remember to guard your own mental state and prioritize. Right? Prioritize. I think if our family members or the husbands are going to expect you to have 100% clean house, food cooked, and children well taken care of during this time, they probably need some kind of psychological analysis done on them. Please get them to me, because it's a difficult time for everybody, and you really don't need any narcissistic personalities to aggravate your life at this point in time.
Definitely, 100%. I think that was so valuable, Dr. Lanka, and I think all the people that have viewed have definitely gained something from it. And I'm going to keep this live story up for the next 24 hours. It will be available for as many people to view in their own time. But before we head out, Dr. Lanka has a practice that he will be running from Monday. That's what she said, Monday, hey?
And you can start booking from Friday.
From Friday, right? So if you would like to see him, he's great with marriages, he's great with families, and if you would like to receive counseling from him, the number that you can call is 083 208 8101. And I'll also put it up in my next story so that you can screen grab and save it for any time that you need, and any friends that may need counseling during this time and even after. He's completely available and really helpful, as many of you have heard. So just want to say thank you so much, Dr. Lanka. It's been such a valuable session. And yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you, dear, and thank you to all those that have caught the program. I hope that this is not the last one, and perhaps we could do this on a regular basis and call it Family Matters for that matter. So thank you once again.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Lanka. I hope you enjoy the rest of the lockdown and time with your lovely wife, Pastor Rebecca, and please send her. Okay, take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.